This is the Movie Theater Butter Podcast, where we talk about stories made into movies and what was modified for the big screen. As a warning, this episode will discuss the plot of both the movie and its original source material, so be ready for spoilers. I'm your host, Kim Labick, and I hope you enjoy the show. Did you ever lose yourself to get what you want? Did you ever get on a ride, then want to get off? Well, that might just be how Kevin Von Erich felt when so much tragedy and death befell his famed wrestler family. Do you get the reference, Rock?
That was
it's a
great.
High School Musical reference. Thank you so much. It's the only thing I could come up with. The Iron Claw, written and directed by Sean Durkin, is strongly based on the true story of the Von Erichs family. And if you need a film to cry it out, let me tell you, this is the film. Bring a box of Kleenex. Today, I'm joined by my good friend and wrestling aficionado, Rock Coleman.
Hey.
How you feeling, Rock?
I'm feeling so good. And let me just tell you this. This is the perfect movie to call your father right after. Right after you see this movie. Yeah. I went to see this movie and people were crawling out of the theater, sobbing.
Yeah.
It was...
Throwing up.
It was a tough one. It was a tough one, for sure.
Yeah. But it was like, we always need those movies. We need movies that are really just going to bring you down and kill you in a good way.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's how you release those emotions. Otherwise, you're just going to bottle it up because you can't cry in your car because you're taking the bus home or whatever it is. But we all need some kind of movie media that we're like, this is the one I cry at. This is the one I get it all out.
Oh, yeah. I think with sports movies in general, though, the marketing is always so much like, oh, we got to get the boys in here. We got to get, it's very much not like a macho genre, but it is something that it specifically appeals to the men, right? Mm-hmm. But then every sports movie I've ever seen punches you right in the heart. That you moment. Feel it in your dick. It is.
Yeah. Even if you don't have one.
If you don't have one.
Yes.
Sorry. Yes. It's for everyone. Yes. But I'm just like, holy shit. Like, they did it again. They got me again.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Oh, it was so good. I love that. I love crying in theater.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was intense, and rightfully so. The story of the Von Erichs family is one of tragedy, mm-hmm. and then another tragedy, and then a brief pause, and then another tragedy. Yep. And it's just like, that's also something I want to
And a tragedy they don't tell you about either.
Yeah.
Which we'll get back
to
a little bit later.
We'll into a second. God, yeah, it was very heavy, and rightfully so. And let's start it light for a second.
Yeah. Let's start at the base. We'll get to
let's
the
start
top
at
soon.
the base. So let's hop off with our favorite quote. And Rock, I know. Do you want to start? Do you want me to start?
I want you to start, because if we have the same one, I'll just silently nod.
I tried to get one that was like a little.
Okay.
I don't know. It's still very much like in the trailer kind of thing.
Yeah.
But my quote was when the dad, whose name I'm totally forgetting.
Oh, forget him.
Yeah.
we don't like him.
Yeah, but he has a really funny quote. He says, "Now we all know Carrie's my favorite, then Kev, then David, then Mike, but the rankings can always change." And I know that quote's not very deep, and it's funny because this movie is very deep, but I just thought it was really funny, and it like tells you everything you need to know about him as a character.
Yes.
Without getting more than 2 sentences.
His name's Fritz. Fritz Von Erich.
Yeah, Fritz.
Fuck Fritz.
Rest in peace, Fritz.
Yeah, no, it was very much in the trailer, it was very much put in there as like something that you laugh to, right? That was supposed to be like a lighthearted moment. It's like, no, when you actually see the movie or whatever, yeah, it's still, you could still take it as that because they were doing their run-of-the-mill family breakfast kind of thing. But that right there is the linchpin to everything. Mm-hmm. To everything. How he views his family is just like a ranking system in wrestling. That's all it is. 100%. He can't stop.
And tell me, Rock, why is that a bad thing? What does that lead to in this movie?
Well, first off, this story is a very, very much a story of toxic masculinity.
Toxic masculinity, as I will lift and take a sip from my Thunder from Down Under mug with 12 shirtless Australian men.
They're so toxic, but so sexy. But yeah, it's a very much a cautionary tale for the men of that generation, the macho men who like just don't talk about their feelings, right? My father, he is of that generation, but he's also from a third world country. So they were a bit more open with their feelings. My dad would like try and sit with me, talk to me whenever he could.
Hell yeah.
And he was still very much of that generation, conservative in a lot of ways or whatever. But when it came down to being soft with his sons, he didn't like, not necessarily hold back, but he tried in his best way to tell us that, hey, I love you. You know, I know you're going through some things or whatever. He was very much a godly man. He was like, hey, just pray, you know. In his own way, he tried, you know. Yeah. Fritz does not try. He didn't try.
No matter how many people tell him to try to give a fuck, he just doesn't.
In fact, anytime that Kevin would come up to him and be like, hey, I'm worried about this. Hey, can you talk to Carrie? Hey, can you do this? Can you do that? He'd be like, hey, that's between you and your brothers. That ain't got nothing to do with me. I don't know if that's how he sounds. It's been a minute since I watched the movie. Hey, Zach, that ain't got nothing to do with me.
hey, Mr. Zac Efron.
Sir.
Fuck off.
That ain't got nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
You go back to high school, you sing your songs, all right? That ain't got nothing to do with me.
Yeah, he knows one thing, and it's wrestling. And that's great. He is great when it comes to wrestling and giving advice thereof, but that's all he knows.
Yeah.
There's not really any being a father in this movie other than the fact that just by definition he is a father. Yeah, but that's very tough, and it causes, I wouldn't say it directly causes everything that happens in this film, because I mean there's literal accidents that happen, there's other things, but it's very much the driving force to what's happening between these brothers and individually with these brothers that causes difficulty and a lot of death.
Not only that, but you can say that this story, the Von Erich story, is like a modern day retelling of Moby Dick. Fritz,
yes.
Fritz is obsession with the World Heavyweight Championship title, specifically WWF's World Heavyweight Championship title, right? Drives him not insane, but he blocks everything out in pursuit of that. He couldn't do it, so therefore his sons have to do it.
Yeah.
You know?
It's very much, it's not my dream, Dad, it's yours.
It's your dream. Even though he starts his own wrestling federation, has his own heavyweight championship, right? That his sons currently own. And that's a thing with wrestling, it's called legitimization, right? Their wrestling championship title is not as legitimate as WWF's World Heavyweight Championship.
Yeah.
To get into the lore of wrestling, like
dive deep.
Back in the day, and they touch down on this in the movie.
Touchdown is a football term, Ron.
Oh shit! I'm sorry, cancel me.
Done. Off the podcast.
But they touch on this in the movie where they mention, you know, WCW, WWF. They all have their own regions or whatever. Now, fans will tune in to whoever they want to, right? But the more fans you have, the more legitimate your titles are. So WWF, which would eventually become WWE, with the McMahons. Boo.
Yeah, we hate them. I don't know you. We hate them.
Oh, we'll get to Vince McMahon later.
Yeah.
But the McMahons, they did it right. They did it right. They had the best promotions. WrestleMania 1 was Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant, right? Okay. And that was one of the biggest things in the world. My mom used to be a wrestling
Literally
fan.
And figuratively.
Yeah. My mom used to be a wrestling fan, and she would tell me she remembers the day that she bought tickets to watch WrestleMania 1.
Damn.
And
that's cool.
It blew her mind. But yeah, stuff like that, where the McMahons had like so much old English money, that they could put on these major events, which then made their company more legitimate than anything else. Ric Flair, who was with WCW in the movie, which I love Ric Flair in this movie. A lot of people didn't like it.
Wait, no, he was great.
I liked it.
Favorite parts. And I know nothing about Ric Flair other than the name, and I've probably seen a picture of him once or twice. But in that movie, I was like, I want a whole movie about Ric Flair.
Ric Flair should 100% get his own movie.
Yeah.
I would love that. There's tons of other wrestlers who definitely deserve it, but Ric Flair's.
His name alone.
His name alone.
His whole shtick, his whole thing is so ripe for the big screen.
Yeah. He was like flamboyant before anyone else was doing it in wrestling, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I believe he was the first one.
Will fact check this.
We'll fact check that later. But like, man, and you know, the story wasn't about him. So even if it was kind of like not really Ric Flair, how he acts really, it was enough for me.
Yeah.
But anyways, Ric Flair would eventually go to WWF, now E, and that helped legitimize those companies. So to bring it all back, Fritz was haunted by this fact that he couldn't get that title that was so legitimized in the wrestling community. And so that's why this is like,
I'm going to create my own title.
Yeah. 100%.
Have a bunch of sons that I abuse and don't listen to and destroy their lives.
100%. It's very much Moby Dick. It's very much Jackson 5. It happens.
Oh, Jackson 5. That's a good.
Every
nice.
time.
Yeah.
Every time with a dad who couldn't make it.
Yeah, we got a lot of that. But there are many dads out there who couldn't make it, who are just like, all right, well, I'll live my life and you do your own thing. And we love those dads. That's my dad. I mean, I don't know. My dad, it wasn't even like he didn't make it. He just has a more soft life and enjoys his soft life. And neither myself or my sister have ever felt pressured by him to be a great football player or anything. But it is also different. I mean, that's part of the story. It is also different with daughters versus sons.
Right.
Because again, the whole thing is this toxic masculinity, sort of repeating this cycle that there's always this pressure on men to be great, that every single man has to be great, has to be, a legacy maker, et cetera, et cetera. And it's just, that's literally impossible to begin with. So it's impossible to have this as like a goalpost.
Yeah.
Because not every single man in the world is going to be, why is the first guy that came to my mind Barack Obama or Zac Efron,
right,
or any of this? And that's okay. We don't need everyone to be in those positions. We need everyone to do their own thing. But, that's part of the core of the issue, is just this passing on of like, you need to be great, especially if I haven't been great.
Or God forbid, they were great.
Yeah, and then you've got big shoes to fill.
Like, going back to what you said, like, it's okay to not be your parent, or it's okay to not follow your parents' dreams. I want to scream that from the rooftops, right?
Yeah.
We don't need another, speaking to Jaden, we don't need another Will Smith. And I think he, at a certain point in his age or whatever, he did spin off to doing his own thing. He's doing his own thing, like, right now.
Yeah.
So to, like, bring it back to, like, wrestling or whatever, The Rock's family, the Samoan dynasty in WWE is actually insane. If there is a Polynesian Samoan anyone in the WWE, you better believe that they most likely are related to The Rock.
Really?
It's not a joke.
Okay.
There are some people who came and went through the WWE that I had no clue that were related to The Rock. You got people like, I'm going to throw out some names that you probably don't even know.
Probably not.
Rikishi.
Oh, yes.
Umaga. Jay Uso.
Right.
Samoa Joe might be, but don't.
That's such a funny name.
it's so fun. I don't think Samoa Joe is, but I think some roundabout way, that might sound a bit dicey.
Cousin of a
maybe
of a cousin.
Maybe, but he was more so on the outskirts. He was like in TNA and stuff like that. But God, it runs so deep to the point now where they're not even hiding it anymore. They used to hide it because it was like, you yourself as a brand, so you have to boost yourself as a brand, right?
Yeah.
Right now in the WWE, they have The Rock and all of his little cousins are in a group together called the Bloodline.
Oh my God.
They're not even fucking hiding anymore. And before,
have we not learned from history?
True. And before, they would be like, have matches against each other, right? And you wouldn't even know that they're related. But now The Rock is like, you are my family, you're my blood. My dad, Rocky Marciano.
Is this why he dove into the Fast and Furious franchise?
No, well,
one of the many reasons?
First off, that's The Rock's ego and his franchise Viagra that he used to call himself. He used to be like, I'm franchise booster, I'm franchise Viagra.
You know who needs to do that? And I'm waiting. We're not there yet.
Yeah.
I think we got a couple years until she dives into the acting world.
Who dat?
You know who I'm talking about. The only wrestler that I can name who is a woman, Rhea Ripley.
Oh, man.
Like,
I'm going to simp. I'm going to simp real fucking hard right now.
Will. But can you see it? I can see her having an incredible career in Hollywood.
I think she will do what Ronda Rousey couldn't.
Yeah.
I think she will 100% do, but here's the thing, she needs to cook a little bit more.
Right.
Ronda Rousey,
she needs another 2-3 years for,
Rousey left the game a bit too quickly and she left the game on a loss. She lost her women's championship and then went to movies and television, right? She wasn't seasoned at all. She wasn't like in front of the camera enough. And then the public eye of her was like, you're a loser. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, you lost.
Yeah.
So why are you in my face?
I feel like we also just didn't know enough about her.
That's true.
Deeper in the community you did, but less like, I'm very much outside of the community. I know like hints of the wrestling world, which is enough to keep track, but not everything. So I only knew sort of hints of Ronda Rousey.
Yeah.
But Rhea Ripley has like, she's got a presence. It gets
Goes
out
on
there.
top.
The algorithm loves her, and
I love the algorithm
her.
for showing me.
Yeah.
I love the algorithm.
She's gonna be great.
Yeah.
But we also have super sidetracked real quick. I do want to bring it back.
Did.
We didn't get to your favorite quote yet.
we did.
Which is fine. It's how it goes. But what is your favorite quote from this movie?
My favorite quote from this movie is the ending quote. Dad, we will be your brothers.
Oh, yeah.
I think, boy, that hurt me more than anything in the world, because it's like his two sons who are so innocent. They don't really know what happened. They don't know everything, I would imagine, right? It would be impossible for them to. And it's just a simple and sweet thing where it's like, I remember moments in my childhood where I saw my parents upset or whatever, and just me just saying something like broke them down in a way that I was like, I'm so confused. I don't know what's happening. I don't know why you're crying like this. But that's such a kid answer. It's like, you can't be my brother. You're my son. But it's like, it doesn't matter. We're blood. You know what I mean? You can see me as this. You're my brother. You're my dad.
Yeah.
You're my brother. You're my son. It's
the intent behind it.
Yeah.
I mean, children so often, because they're still learning language and they're still understanding all of this connotation.
Yeah.
They, oftentimes will say something like that where there is so much meaning behind it. But, in their heads, it's just kind of like a simple, like, oh, you can be my brother. There's so much love behind it. And I think that's what Fritz feels very clearly. And you can sense it. Or I'm sorry, not Fritz.
Kevin.
Kevin. Jesus. So many names.
But yeah, it's so damn powerful because, oh man, I think in Kevin's head, because at that point in the movie he's in a better place, right? Not the best place, definitely a better place. And I know in the back of his mind when the last brother went, he's probably thinking like, shit, I'm all that's left. I am all that's left. His dad, we don't count him.
Yeah.
But because it's like, he's after this, he ain't popping out any more kids. Fuck that. You think his wife is gonna let him touch her?
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
They're done.
They're done. So Kevin's sitting there thinking, oh my God, that's it. That's it of my lineage. That's it of like my family. That's it of my love. You know what I mean? That I had for these people who I grew up with, And then here comes his two sons, and his beautiful wife is just like off in the corner too, like watching them. And just that reassurance is like, hey, old man, you're wrong. You're not alone.
Yeah. It's got the same feeling as, I'm going to relate this to Barbie for a second. It's got the same feeling as there's a line in Barbie. She says something along the lines of, mothers stand still so daughters can see how far they've come. And it kind of reminds me of that and what we were talking about earlier with just generational differences in society.
Yes.
Because it's very true, sort of your parents and their parents before and so on and so forth. When you look down the line, it's like every new generation is overall learning and getting better at just being human and understanding the world and working together with other people. Yes, there are exceptions for sure, but I think overall that's just a common theme. And especially when we talk about toxic masculinity as well, so much of the millennial generation and Gen Z, and especially we haven't really dove into Gen Alpha yet, but I'm sure that they will improve upon it even more. Like, we are getting so much better about attacking toxic masculinity and talking about it and just making things better for people slowly but surely. Yeah, I don't know. We're getting it done. We're not where we should be yet, but every new generation, every new person is doing what they can to make a change, to make an improvement. So it's beautiful to see something like that where you can already see that Kevin, right? Kevin's kids are already
breaking the curse.
Yeah, they're already breaking the curse. They're like, we just want to be cool and love each other. Yeah, good stuff.
And I think it's tough to say But Kevin definitely needed to go through that thing. He didn't need to. Sorry, that's the wrong
But I know
way
you,
of saying
that's
it.
another, this kind of concept has been talked about a lot.
Yeah.
And the wording is always difficult, but I know what you mean.
It's tough because if his family did succeed, it would just continue on. And I know that Kevin was different. You know, out of his brothers, like Carrie was very much like, oh, I'm for this, Dad. I want to do this, Dad. But Kevin also wanting to do it, he understood because he can see. Kevin is the oldest. Being the eldest and recognizing the patterns in other people, like you're seeing your baby brothers, you know, going through that, and you recognize it, it does something to you. It would be different if he was the only one, because then he'd be in an echo chamber.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh no, this is what I'm supposed to do. But he can see it from the outside. And I think having that perspective of seeing something, all the bad shit from the outside and not being in that echo chamber, saved him specifically.
I agree. There's a moment on what you're talking about. There's a moment where I think it's all of the brothers go to see, which of the brothers is the musical one?
It's Mike.
It is Mike. Okay.
It was Mike. David was the second brother that was gaining traction.
Okay. So yeah, there's this whole scene. Thank you for that. There's this whole scene where they go to a party and Mike is performing there, and you can tell that Mike is having a good time and just being himself and expressing himself, and the brothers are enjoying it and they're having a fun time. And there's just the whole film, not even just the cinematography, but every element combined really does a great job of conveying what you're talking about, where it's like Kevin can clearly see that Mike has all this potential to live a different life of his own.
Yeah.
And he knows, both of them still know deep down that's not the way it's going to go. But Kevin especially knows. He's like, I can see right now all this potential that you have, and it's not going to be what happens in your life.
Yeah. And it's such a tough thing to see happen, right? Potential squandered. Because in a wrestling family, and this is, you know, I don't come from like a sports background. I was in a lot of sports growing up. I was also wrestling state champ.
Oh, shit.
In school, yeah.
So Rock, you are the Rock, but you are just Rock.
I'm just Rock. I used to say that I was like, no, I'm born the Rock. But then it was like, oh, no, wait, that's Dwayne's family name too. So
you're like, I can't take that.
Yeah. So whatever. But yeah, I've seen other kids of sports families, you know what I mean? And it's a tough thing where it's like they feel so obligated to do the thing that their parents or their brothers or sisters are doing, when in reality, like, life is given to you to have your own experiences. God, you don't need to do what your family does. If it's a family business, like you own a farm or whatever the fuck, okay, yeah, you've been running it since you were like a kid or whatever, that's fine. But like at a certain point, your own identity needs to come into question. Yeah. You know what I mean? It is your family's livelihood, like wrestling, but it doesn't have to be your livelihood.
You're a separate person.
You are a separate person.
Regardless of the family that you came from, which the family you come from, you know, shapes you in a lot of ways, changes you in a lot of ways, is important to you in a lot of ways. But regardless, you still have your own life. I mean, even if you have like the most supportive, happy family and their farm is incredible and is the best farm in town, if you desperately just want to be a high school basketball teacher, go be a high school basketball teacher.
The farm ain't going nowhere, hopefully.
The farm ain't going. Somebody else would love that farm.
Yeah.
You can find somebody else in town. Like, I don't know. So I've kind of just got like a chunk of little bullet points here.
Yeah.
Things that were different in the film versus the original source material. And for this one, if you didn't already know, it's very obvious. It's based, again, on the Von Erichs family and a lot of true events thereof. But there are some differences in some of the deaths and some of the characters. And
well, initially, this is the prologue of the story, right? It's Fritz with his family all in the RV or all in the car or whatever. And, you know, he's wrestling and it's all in black and white or whatever. It's old. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's Fritz leaving his match and spending money on shit that he can't afford. It's the gamble, right? It's the gamble of, we got to look successful to be successful, right? And his wife was like, we got two boys here. We don't know what we're doing or whatever. Are they going to give you the shot? And he's like, they're going to give me the shot. They're going to give me the title shot. That, you know, that delusion of it all.
Have you seen Succession?
I, I haven't seen the last couple episodes of Succession, and thinking back on the entire series of Succession, I'm like, am I dumb? I don't understand what's. I have no fucking clue what's going on in this show. They keep talking about business jargon, and then someone will slap someone else, and I'm like, ooh, something's happening.
That's the whole show.
That's
that is
it.
the whole show. They'll be like the stock numbers with the bitcoins and the
And I'm
sevens.
like, weren't you doing
the
something else?
sevens became threes, and you're like, oh, is that? Am I supposed to feel something? But then something crazy will happen.
You were literally doing something an episode ago that was completely different from this, and I'm like, what are you guys running Fox or not? I don't understand what's happening.
I also got so confused, and I think this is part of the story because I think all of the business stuff you're supposed to lose, right?
Yeah.
Like you're not supposed to be able to super follow.
Why is there so much?
Yeah,
There's
you're
so
supposed
much
to-
of it.
Yeah. But I one of the things specifically for Succession with me was they were throwing around like the COO and the CEO and the CFO terms all the time, and it like constantly changed who was what and who wanted to be what
Yes.
and why and who wanted who to be what, and which was fun and that's part of the whole plot. But I'm also like, are these guys ever doing a job? Like, I don't see them ever doing a job. I see them only ever like competing and yelling at each other.
Competing, yelling, and walking.
And walking.
They're always walking somewhere.
Walking down the hall, on a phone call.
It's like the
in
West
plane.
Wing. They're always walking, and I don't know, but
Right, but wrestling.
yes, wrestling.
So, why was I even saying that Succession? Oh, right, because it kind of felt like that. Seeing, it's that same sort of thematic concept, I should say, where you're trying to just like puff your feathers, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to like peacock it when the reality of what you need to be doing is reality.
Yeah,
For
you need
lack
to
of a better word.
exist right
Yeah.
here, right now. Yeah,
And so much of Succession, of course, is very peacocking. Like the main character, the old guy, the king of it
Yeah.
all sort of thing, is constantly doing that. He's just constantly yelling at everybody and being like, I'll get it done. I'll get the deal done.
Fuck off.
You don't worry about it. Fuck off. Yeah. And that's very much Fritz too. And you can tell that really early on in that first scene.
yeah. He just not doing what he is supposed to be doing. I think it's more so doing what he thinks the company, well, the crowds and the company would want from him to do. Because Kevin even says it. It's like your performance in the ring and outside of the ring, getting a belt is your job review. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
you're on top. You're on top of your job. You're on top of your image. You're on top of the company. You do your job the best at the company. You get the belt. That's what it is. It's employee of the month. That's what the belt is.
What a great movie if you've never seen it.
And so starting after that prologue, then we get, the Von Erichs, Kevin running in, doing his thing, and it looks great, and it's high energy. Everyone loves it. They're doing the Iron Claw. They're smushing faces.
It's such a silly looking move. Not gonna lie, the actual Iron Claw is so silly looking.
Wrestling is a
It's like,
silly
I've got a
thing.
hand. Yeah.
Yeah, finishing moves are fun. But and as far as what's real and what isn't real, this is all on YouTube as well. You can go and watch old episodes of their Federation, and it is very much like that. Like, those boys were the heroes of that Federation. And there's something to be said about long form storytelling. Because that's all wrestling is. Wrestling is soap opera, wrestling is anime. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Like
With just a little more sweat.
just a little bit more sweat, a whole lot more steroids.
A whole lot more steroids.
That's
and sometimes a lot more ass.
a lot more,
Not
200% more ass
200% more
than
ass.
any episode of Fairy Tale.
Oh my gosh, the trailer for Iron Claw? So much ass. But also just a great trailer.
Great
Like,
trailer.
So much ass.
And so what's real is that was so on point. That was so it was so them. They were the rock stars of their town. And a lot of people don't like it when people are the face. Face means like you're the good guy, right? For so long. And I can imagine that they were the face the entire time. They were champions
Yeah.
the entire time.
Yeah, and you need to be, especially in wrestling. And this is something I don't even, because again, I'm not super deep into it. I would love to be. I think I should get to,
Oh, yeah.
watching more and learning more. But yeah, I mean, you can even tell from the outside that it's like somebody who's been, as you say, the face. The face for so long is like, you got to knock them down. You need a new face. You need
Exactly.
story. You need conflict. It can't just be,
you need drama.
This guy's our hero forever.
Yeah. And that was what was going on within the household. You know?
Yeah.
It was very much so that, like, when Carrie got into the picture, you know, and Kevin stopped getting those opportunities that he thought at the time he was owed, I would say, or what was promised to him. Because it was Carrie and David, right? Those were the two Von Erich brothers for like the longest time.
The top boys.
They worked well together. David definitely had more showmanship than Kevin. It became a conflict between the two. But at the end of the day, they were the Von Erich brothers. They were the boys, right? That it was them, you know? And then Carrie got into the picture, and Carrie was the first superstar of that family. I would say so. Yeah. Carrie was the only one to make it into the WWE. He was the only one to have a title shot. He was the only one to win that title shot in WWE, I believe.
Okay.
I think so.
I'll trust you on that.
I think so. I think that's what happened. And much like with David, because David, no, that's not true. David also went to the WWE, I believe.
Oh, damn. There's a ton of titles. I was looking up, like, I have a little quick trivia question for you later, and I could not keep track of all of it. It was insane.
I think David got his shot, and then that's when he died. I think it was partying, a mixture of either partying or heavy narcotics that done him in the end. But the movie doesn't touch too much on his mental state, right? When he was out and about in the city and traveling and stuff like that. Because I would imagine with wrestling, you do have to be away from your family a lot, right? If they're not on the road with you, you're around strangers, you're around people who can lead you down the wrong path, which most likely is what happened. He partied with a bunch of people, a bunch of rock star wrestlers, a bunch of scoundrels or whatever who did not have his best interests in heart. He did a little bit too much, OD'd, passed away.
Yeah.
In the hotel room, right? I think that's what they said.
Yeah,
what happened in the movie?
He was out of state.
Yeah,
or out of the country.
And so that's what happened to the first Von Erich brother. I think the adjustment of not being in your hometown, not being with your brothers, got to him. I think that's what happened to him specifically. Was like I think it was such a huge, drastic change from what he was used to, because he was the star in his own backyard. You know what I mean? And then he goes out. And he's not that.
Yeah, and doesn't even have his brothers to lean on.
Exactly.
You know?
And I think the pressure of that and the anxiety of that, I think that got to him, because he was the most charismatic one, you know?
Yeah.
And it's very much like a you peak in high school kind of thing. Ooh, where it's like he was top, you know, he had his brother or whatever. His brother was also popular, but he was like on the come up, right? It's David. You know, he's the man.
And again, going back to that's what, you know, his dad imposed upon him. He had to be. So I feel like once you get to that point, like any wavering away from it feels probably so crushing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's what happens to the first one. And the movie, I like what the movie did with the mom.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We haven't even talked about her too much yet. But so I don't know enough about how she might be different as a character versus as, you know, the real story.
I don't know much about her either.
Yeah.
I really don't. The way that the movie portrayed her is very much believable as a woman who grew up in a wrestling household with a husband who most likely wasn't very attentive to her needs and stuff like that. I think halfway in the movie, we find out our first tidbit of her, that she loved to paint.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, you actually have a character.
Well, but for
I think
this
that's the point.
Exactly. I was going to say, that's something we could criticize from like a cinematic aspect and be like, well, female characters, which I think is also valid a little bit. But for this character and for this story and for this family, it makes so much sense, because that's the whole point, like you're saying, is it was so wrestling is everything. Being number one in wrestling is everything.
Yep.
And no doubt that was also put onto the wife, not in the sense that she has to be a wrestler, but in the sense that this has to be your life and your priority and what you prioritize with the boys. Yeah. And we saw that again, like you were mentioning earlier, in that opening scene, you know, with the car, and she's talking about family, and she's like, I thought we were gonna, you know, live a happily ever after,
settle down,
and have a family, settle down. And he's like, it's wrestling or death.
Yeah.
And it becomes wrestling and death.
You get both. You get everything you asked for.
God, yeah.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah.
Do we want to talk about the missing brother?
I want to go down the line because he's the youngest.
Okay, let's get to that later.
So the next person is Carrie.
Love him.
Well, should we go in order of death? I think order of death.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Well, okay, so the first... So
David was the first.
David was the... Well, okay, technically, the young brother, who we never really see, was technically the first death. Like the super... No, like the tiny young.
So Chris.
I don't know his name.
Chris Von Erich.
Okay, yes. So Chris died first. No. Chris was a different one.
Oh, yes. Sorry. That's the one I was talking about.
So many people die.
Okay.
It's confusing.
Yes, you're right. You're 100% right. Kevin had an older brother. I forget Baby Von Erich's name.
Yeah, but Baby Von
Erich was the first one to die. That is correct.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I can't believe I forgot about him.
No, I know, because there's so many. That's part of the tragedy.
Yeah.
That it becomes so much and so heavy. It feels impossible to even really wrap your head around.
Yeah, Baby Von Erich, I don't know what he died of.
A broken heart. I'm sorry.
I don't.
He had so much pressure.
He had so much pressure. It's like, you better bench that 150-pound weight.
He's like, I don't know how old he died at, but in the movie he seemed at least around.
He was like 5.
10, 8,
I think he was younger than that.
5?
I think he was like 5.
Damn.
Yeah.
Oh God. But yes, he was the first.
Yeah, he was the first.
The family, and then it was.
David.
And then
next would be Mike.
And Mike was the first suicide. How did Mike die?
Was
Mike the accident? Oh,
no, Carrie was the accident.
Carrie was the accident.
I think later. Mike was. No, it was Carrie. It was Carrie. Carrie wasn't next. Why am I spacing on this?
I don't know.
I think
it's heavy. It's a lot.
I think Mike was next. Right? I think Carrie got into the accident, right? So Carrie was on the come up, got the titles, got whatever, got into the accident, couldn't wrestle anymore.
Mm-hmm. But when he got into the accident, he didn't die. Yes,
he didn't die. He got into an accident, did not make it to the hospital in time, or however, I think the movie presents it as a different way. I think he didn't get to the hospital in time, and then also was training while he was supposed to be healing, and then got his leg amputated, his foot amputated.
Oh God.
So he was supposed to be bedridden, and decided to go full Rock Lee. That's a Naruto reference for you guys. Training while he was supposed to be resting, and unlike Rock Lee, they had to amputate his leg.
Oh gosh,
which is crazy. So at that point, Mike stepped up. He gave up his music career, or his budding music career.
Yes.
Stepped up and decided that he was going to start wrestling for the family. Mike is not a wrestler. And it was one of those things where it's like, you don't got to do this shit. You don't have to.
And Kevin was telling him that too.
Exactly.
As much as he could and as much as he knew how to.
Yeah. With the tools that he had.
Yeah.
He was like, you don't have to do this.
Mm-hmm.
In the movie, he hit the canvas wrong. He hit the mat wrong. And I think he either like knocked himself out or whatever, or started hemorrhaging. He had like a hemorrhage or something like that. In the operating room, while they were helping him, the doctor botched something and he went into toxic shock.
Oh, God.
And then got permanent brain damage. So that's what happened to Mike. Mike became so depressed, and the family was just like in shambles at that point, right? Where Mike was like, I'm a failure. I couldn't step up when the family needed me to step up, when in reality, it was never his responsibility to do that.
Yeah. He
goes into the bathroom. He takes a bunch of pills. He drags his sleeping bag out into the woods, and then silently moves on. Yeah. Passes away. And I think it was like at that point, that's when Kevin was like, okay, like we gotta,
maybe there's a real problem.
There is a real curse in our family. Like maybe.
Was that around the time, at least in the film, Kevin started saying at one point, he was like, when he started having kids, I think he was like, I don't want them to have my last name.
It was when his firstborn happened, because his wife was like, I have the brothers' names actually
We should have
here.
done like a little character chart.
I
Like it's almost
know.
as complicated as if you've ever tried to read the Silmarillion, which is like it's like the Lord of the Rings Bible basically.
Don't even get me
And
started.
it's so heavy. There's so much. And I remember when I started reading that, I had to come up with a character sheet. I think Ironclaw objectively doesn't have that many characters.
No.
But I think because the problem is on so many of them and so many of them are feeling and reacting in the same way.
Yeah.
That's how it gets convoluted. And then almost all of them die.
Yeah.
So it's just like, it's the repeating of the story, and that's why this is so impactful, is because it's not just one instance where this happens and it's a tragedy. It keeps happening.
Yeah.
And they're not
And
really
they don't know
learning
how to
from
stop
it.
it.
Yeah,
They don't know how to
Kevin's the
stop.
only one that ultimately is learning from it and ultimately gets to a place where he kind of comes out of it for the most part. Whereas Fritz, who is the main problem, never learns.
So it was either Marshall or Ross gets born.
Okay.
And Kevin's like, I don't want them to have the last name, because right now he's fully believing in the curse. You know, once was an accident. He was too young to understand that. The 5-year-old. The second one, that's also an accident. He was depressed. He didn't know how to deal with the fame or whatever. Understandable, still a tragedy, right? This was clear. This one was clear suicide. Clear as day suicide. And now he's like, oh shit, I've just lost 2 brothers I was close with and one that I didn't even know. Truly, he didn't really know him, right? They were too young. I don't want my kid to have this last name. I don't want him to have that pressure. I don't even want to entertain the fates that way.
Which is, even whether or not you believe it is attached to the name or something, but it's the first real definitive sign, like you're saying, of Kevin recognizing this is a bad cycle and needs to be broken.
Yeah.
And he doesn't know how to do that yet. He doesn't have the tools. But the first thing he tries to cling on to is he's just openly saying we just cannot have this continue.
Exactly.
Which is great.
So much so that I think at that point in the movie, Kevin stops wrestling. He takes over the family wrestling federation, but he himself stops wrestling. Because after Mike's death, that really did it for the family. I think that was it, right? That was it. Like, they're done with wrestling. Fritz is like, well, this is my federation, my bread and butter, so we're going to keep it open. Kevin wants to sell. Fritz is like, if you sell, you're not my son anymore. All this dumb shit, right? So Kevin's still running it, and his sons are now growing up. Carrie, as healed as he possibly can be, gets a prosthetic leg. And here's something for that happened in the movie, didn't have versus real life kind of thing. They don't say this in the movie, but Carrie did not. A lot of people in the locker room, that's what you call the backstage for wrestling, didn't know that Carrie had a prosthetic leg.
Oh, really?
It was not public.
Damn. And I'm sure, like, who's gonna look at your leg so intensely that
it wasn't as public as it should have been. But if you look at some of his matches after that accident, he's stiff, and people are just thinking it's like, oh, okay, it's nerve damage. Oh, okay, it's tight muscles. Oh, okay, it's surgery. The motherfucker didn't have a foot, and people, a lot of people didn't even know that was the case. So Carrie, it's Carrie's turn now.
Yeah.
Carrie is a mix between Mike and David. Carrie had the fame, lost the fame. Now he's feeling like he's a disappointment to the family because he is, as he states in the movie, mangled. You know what I mean?
He's basically like, he's almost literally killing himself to get back on top.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. When it's not possible anymore. That's just something you have to accept. You could have taken your money, whatever fame you got, and put it towards something else. There's so many jobs in wrestling that you could do. You can train. You could be an announcer.
Yeah.
I mean, you could be a producer, a writer. There's so many jobs that you can have there. And you being a Von Erich would instantly get you in the door. So I don't know what that is, but it's like...
That's the good side of being a Nepo baby.
Yeah. But it's that Moby...
Well, and you've have an established career by that point. Yeah.
But it's that Moby Dick mentality, man. It's like, I need that belt. I need to bring it home to the family. And he did.
Yeah.
He got the belt, but he felt empty.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't mean anything anymore. He's 3 brothers down.
Yeah.
He, Kevin, and Chris, who we'll get to, are the last ones left because Chris isn't in the movie. Mm-hmm. And yeah, and that's it. So Kevin at this point, he's a family man. He don't wrestle anymore.
More and more every day.
He barely even shows up. And he gets a call from Carrie. Carrie's on the road and he's like, hey man, I'm not feeling good. I want this to end or whatever. The curse, it got me. It got me. And I love how they refer to male depression as the curse.
Yeah.
For the advocates out there who are curious about men's health, especially, you need to watch this movie because this is what it is. I couldn't find another better representation of men's depression than this, men's mental health than this movie. It's the pressure to succeed and fail and feeling like you contribute nothing to society. Your life means nothing anymore because you can't do this one thing that you were once good at, or you can't do this one thing at all. You know, wanting to talk to someone, not having the tools to talk to someone because the generation before you who were men didn't have the tools to talk to you or their family.
And it's still very stigmatized.
And it's still stigmatized to this day.
Which again, we're getting slowly better about, but
you want to talk and then some Lord forbid the people around you don't legitimize your feelings, or you have toxic friends and toxic women in your life who are like, that's not how men are supposed to be.
Right. Who are just perpetuating
the stereotype. So now Carrie's in this place where he could have talked to Kevin. He could have talked to someone, but he did not have the tools to do it. And this is his last ditch effort. He's like, I'm scared. He says he's scared. And I'm like, I'm getting emotional right now, right? Because I've been in so many situations that are like that. And thank God we were able to like pull them out of that situation. But he's like, I'm scared. I don't know what to do. Kevin in the movie, I don't blame movie Kevin, but this is kind of on movie Kevin right in this exact moment. The decision that he makes after he hangs up the phone with Carrie, he should have went and found Carrie.
That's what I was thinking.
He should not have called his dad.
Yeah.
But
again,
But he didn't know.
He didn't know. He doesn't have the tools. It doesn't really understand. Is just barely sort of reaching out to understand this all and is not there yet.
Yeah.
And I think that makes it more heartbreaking because again, you can tell, we talk about this so much, you can tell he's reaching out, you can tell he's trying, you can tell he really is understanding that the cycle needs to be broken, but to then again not have the resources to understand it fully and understand what to do.
Yeah.
Because then when it happens, it's normally heartbreaking and even more so heartbreaking because you know that he's going to feel this guilt forever too because he
didn't know how to do it. So Kevin goes back to the house right after that disturbing message last night. At least so he did. He goes to the house, right? But he doesn't know that Carrie's there. Right? And so he's looking for his dad. He's calling out Carrie's name. Maybe Carrie's here, maybe he isn't. And you hear a gunshot. And the way that the movie presents it is such a panicky kind of way because I don't know if you noticed this. Kevin was so close.
Yes, because he drove by, didn't he?
It's such a weird kind of it's a great like storytelling and like metaphors because it's like Kevin goes into the house. The tree is right there blocking the view of Carrie holding the gun up to his face.
That is really great symbolism. Wow,
it's such great symbolism. It's like you are so close to saving your brother or helping your brother, but you just couldn't see him. You just couldn't see.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it fucking kills me. And then you just hear the gunshot and it's just panic. He's like looking around and it was the tree that was blocking his view. He couldn't fully see his brother. Just like how the dad can't fully see, his kids messing around. The brothers really couldn't see. They know each other's pain, but they can't really see it.
Yeah.
And he goes and he dude, man, tears, man.
That was the worst one for me.
He picks up his brother and, well, first off, he fucking, I thought he was going to kill Fritz. I thought he was going to punch him once and his head was going to explode. And he's like, and he's holding him. He's like, I told you to look after him. And what does the dad say? It was between you and your brothers. It
kills me so much. Those moments in film, in life, in anything where it is right in front of you. Somebody is directly telling you, and it's right in front of you. And for Fritz to still just be like, nah.
I'm
like,
the deflecting and delusion is like, insane. The copium is insane with him.
Yeah, it's so ingrained. It's so
clinical.
Stuck. Yeah.
And so Kevin picks up Carrie, and he's just like, you can see it. Zac Efron.
Oh,
man, you are so good.
Should have been nominated.
You were so good, because I don't know how or what they did to your eyes, but I've seen those exact eyes in so many men, where it's like they're at the brim of crying and they can't. They want to let it out. I want to punch this wall, and I can't do it. Mm-hmm. He brings Carrie back into the house, lays him on the table, and just, that's it.
Yeah.
In the movie's canon, he is the last one.
Which
now brings us to their forgotten Von Erich is Chris Von Erich. Chris was officially, at that time, the youngest Von Erich alive. And I believe, in the order of deaths, Chris died right after Mike.
Okay.
Yeah, Chris died right after Mike, and he died almost the exact way. The reason why they did not put it in the movie is because that would be back to back. But the reason why this is so fucked up, and the reason why Chris's story, I feel like, should have been included in it no matter what, even if they wanted to like cut away from the death and just be like, he died. Include Chris somehow, because Chris's whole deal was that he was born frail. Chris was born frail, and in a wrestling family, he truly was going to be the last one that you would think would ever step in the ring. But beyond all of that scrutiny or whatever, and the doubt in his head, he worked out every day, built muscle. He fought against his fate. He was supposed to be a frail boy. And he did what he thought was right, but his bones just weren't it. Every single time that Chris would get in the ring to wrestle, he would injure himself. He was like whatever that disease Mr. Glass has from Unbreakable. I'm just going to call it brittle bone syndrome or whatever, but it's your bones just don't have the calcium to sustain themselves. So he was hurting himself. Mm-hmm. Every other match, he was injured. And he was like, Mike was right. We're cursed. No matter how much we try to bring greatness to the family name, we can't do it. He also, and I can look this up later, but let's just say he killed himself. I think it was he swallowed pills as well and OD'd. I believe that's what happened, but for the sake of this, as far as like not spreading misinformation, he just killed himself.
Mm-hmm. When I read into that, I read into why that was the choice. Because this, I think, is the most interesting and most notable difference between the true story and the film.
Yeah.
Everything else is very true for the most part, little tweaks here and there, nothing too crazy, but this is a very big point. So I looked into it, I was like, okay, I wonder why they chose to do that. And really the reason came down to, there's a quote from Sean Durkin in the Los Angeles Times, and he just straight up says, there was a repetition to it, and it was one more tragedy that the film couldn't really withstand, which I think makes a ton of sense as far as making a film. And he's right, because but isn't that also the whole point in a way?
Yes. And to make it even worse, right? It is often said that Chris's whole deal was that he was afraid of being forgotten. He's the forgotten Von Erich brother because he was so weak that he wasn't in a lot of matches. He was the runt of the litter. So all the attention was on the older brothers. It wasn't really on him. He definitely was sickly and he got whatever attention that he needed. But as far as like that bonding that all the brothers shared, he didn't have that. Yeah. So when the movie came out and Chris isn't in it, it's like his worst fears came true. And that really fucking sucks, man. That sucks so much that it was his one and only, and not only, but like publicly, that was his anxiety. Being the Von Erich brother in this dynasty that did not get to show himself. And in the biopic of their entire family, he is the only one that isn't there. Isn't that fucking crazy?
It is. And it's especially sad given the fact that there were so many suicides in this family. And for this death particularly to be a suicide, it kind of again reminds me of men attempt and commit suicide significantly more frequently than women. It reminds me of that because I think so often we forget that fact. And so often we forget that there are so many men struggling because it's kind of invisible and that's part of the whole problem. And this character not being in the film kind of represents that, to me at least. It's that this is still a problem and we should be showing all of it, and he's just forgotten in the same way that we consistently forget to prioritize men's health and to ask men how they're doing and to try and help. Yeah, it is a whole mess of tragedy. I do understand from a film point of view, from a business point of view, that it is so very hard to juggle all of this difficulty and tragedy in one film without making it just a single note of depression. But I think it is completely valid for you and for I and for audiences to say, like, this is a character that regardless should have been included somehow.
Mm-hmm. And hindsight's whatever. But I think there truly was a way to include him where I think would have been respectful to who he was and respectful to the family itself. When I got out of the theater, I knew that Chris was missing. And I was like, man, wouldn't it have been a great moment in the movie where Chris was always there? He just didn't have lines to give. Like, what if he was the character that would just like react to like things that were just going on, right? And it would be so powerful that his very few words that he would have in the movie would be consulting Kevin and being like, hey, are you good? You know what I mean? Are you okay? Mm-hmm. It could have been a thing where it's like, those could have been like his first fucking words. And that would have been,
yeah, just enough so to not have it overwhelm, but you're including him in a way that reflects him.
And then you can have it where, speaking of like not having the tools to adapt or to deal with these issues, Carrie or Kevin could have been like, oh, I'm fine or whatever. But like Chris could know like this is not right or whatever. But now he's getting sad and we don't have to show him killing himself. But it could be a time skip where we just see his tombstone or something.
Yeah. And
have Carrie or Kevin or even both of them there. Have them actually have a conversation face to face before Carrie goes back on the road. Yeah. And then gets depressed too. The last time that they talk could be standing over their baby brother's grave and them being like trying to talk to each other but not having the words to actually get it done. I know I just made it more sad, but that would have been so good. That what would have instilled Kevin in the movie version to break the cycle was remembering that his little brother Chris tried to talk to him.
Mm-hmm. And it would have been very representative of something we always talk about when we talk about depression, but the fact is you can't really see it on people.
Yeah.
Some people you can, some people will express it and will show it, but more often than not you really can't. And it tends to also be people who are reaching out to others and sort of, trying to kind of solve it for themselves that way.
Yeah.
Where they can't really express their own depression, their own feelings. They can't really reach out, but they want to help others. So that would have been perfect because that would have also been a great representation of the truth of it all.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. But still, I understand where the director was coming from. I just think for respect for this family to not include one of them because of runtime or because you just couldn't figure out a way to include them. There was a way. I just gave you a good one.
Yeah.
I just gave you a pretty decent way to put him in there.
Go back, reshoot the movie.
But still, it's still such a very amazing and powerful showing of men's health. I just wish that they got everyone in there. But no movie's perfect. That's just the name of the game.
No movie's perfect.
No movie's
except
perfect.
for Barbie 2023. But that's a different episode. Yeah. Oh gosh. Okay. Let's skip ahead, I think, to the ending of the film.
Yeah.
Because the film itself is so heavy and so deep and so dark. And the ending of the film, I think, was what made me cry the most. Mm-hmm. And yet it was so beautiful in a way. It's this sort of, it's supposed to be heaven, but it's done in a way that doesn't feel cheesy.
Yeah. So I've talked to friends who have seen this movie, guys and girls, but specifically the men who saw that. Some don't like that little scene.
Okay.
In my head, right? Because we see Kevin right after that, right? Just looking off into nothing. Kevin is such an innocent character in this movie that even the first time he has sex with his wife in that car, he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. And he asks her, he's like, how many have you been with or whatever? And she's like, I've had my fun. You know what I mean? It's like she's a woman. You know what I mean? And Kevin's like, oh no, this is my first time. And she thinks she's like the sweetest, like,
yeah,
grown man baby she's ever seen. And Kevin had an innocent outlook on life. He's like, I love God, I love my family, I love wrestling. Mm-hmm. That and all of that gets taken away. He has to build his family then. You know what I mean? So I think that that's Kevin coming to terms with like his family, his brothers. Even though he's the last one, in his own mind, his brothers have each other. So therefore, everything's okay. And he even remembers his older brother. And he remembers his older brother exactly how he was in his mind, a baby. And
that's beautiful.
That fucking killed me too, because I was like,
yeah.
No one knows if heaven's real. No one has any concept of what it could even look like, right? We all have. There's a popular belief that when we die, you create your own heaven in that time between your last breath and when you finally fade away. That time lasts forever in a person's mind. So we create our own heaven or whatever outcome we think we deserve. So that's why some people, when they're like close to death or whatever, if they feel like they don't deserve a happy ending, concept of hell comes in the frame. The people who, you know, who've lived a decent life. And that's why I'm like, you know what? Let go of hate. Treat everyone right. Treat everyone with respect and love and stuff like that. Because when your time is up, you don't know what the fuck you're gonna see. You know what I mean? And I'm in the frame of like, I want to see family members that I've never seen, that I haven't seen before, family members that I've lost, friends that I've lost, people that I've cared about. That's what I want to see.
Yeah.
So you create your own heaven. And so while Kevin is just staring out into nothing, I think he's daydreaming about the heaven that his brothers deserve, which is each other next to a lake on the countryside, just being with each other. Mm-hmm. From a storytelling standpoint, kind of cheesy. Fine. It's like this weird cutaway or whatever. But, sorry, visual storytelling, that's kind of cheesy. The narrative of it, and once you realize who Kevin is, once you know who Kevin is, and his simple way of thinking, remember, God, wrestling, family. Mm-hmm. That is the perfect way to send off his brothers in his own mind.
Yeah. It feels like the filmmakers sort of a last little love letter to that family and to those brothers to say, here's the last scene I want to leave you off with, is this beautiful image of them just being able to exist together in a happy place, in a happy world.
And it's so cool too. The reason why I also love that scene is no one's crying, you know, in that version of heaven. In fact, Carrie, he's swimming on his paddle, and the way that he greets his brothers, you would think that in this made up world that Kevin made up in his head, that Carrie had a house right across the lake, and he's just coming to visit his brothers for the day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The way that he greets them is like, hey, brothers. They didn't skip a fucking beat. Mm-hmm. It was like it was a Sunday afternoon. I just got out of church. I just got out of practice. I'm going to go across the lake. I'm going to go see my brothers. It fucking kills me. Cause it fucking kills me. Because it's like, and they hug each other. And then he's like, oh, you must be my older brother. And he picks up the little baby. Oh. Fucking kills me. And a little bit more about myself. My dad has kids. My dad has had.
That is. I can promise you that is a fact.
That is a fact.
I can promise you that.
My dad has had 3 different relationships. My mom, I believe, where I came from, was his last marriage. So I have 3 elder brothers who lived in Africa my entire life that I did not know. I met one of them officially for Christmas 2 years ago.
Oh, dang. Nice.
Yeah, officially. And the third brother, his name is TC. He had like initials. My last name's Coleman, so his name started with a T. I don't really know. They just call him TC.
Yeah.
He died. And my dad never told me. I had no clue that I had an older brother. He was the eldest. I think he was the eldest out of all of them, that he died. Oh, and wow. When I was talking to my brother Charles, who I met over Christmas, he was like, you know, I blame Dad for like a lot of things that happen in our lives, right? I used to think that you and your little brother Corey were like the favorite of the family because that's who Dad fought to be with for so long. and I blamed him for TC's death. And I was like, who are you talking about? And he's like, he didn't even tell you. We have an older brother, and he died. And I blamed Dad for that. I blamed him for a very long time because of that. And he's like, and he was teaching me something about like letting go, because my dad also left me and my little brother. And he was like, you have to let go of all of this. Our siblings are half siblings. None of us are going to be as close as we should have been. And it was because of Dad. Mm-hmm. He was the one person that could have brought us all together, and he didn't really do that. Circumstances, my dad's a good man. He just did not so good things. Foolish things, I would say. And knowing that there could be a point in time after my death that I could potentially see my older brother, someone I've never shit, dude, sorry.
No, you're fine. And I'm very sorry for your loss. Even if you don't know somebody, learning of them is hard, and especially if this person is your brother, it's difficult in ways that, you know, only you can understand. And I'm very sorry for your loss. No, I'm sorry for the situation. Yeah.
But like that's I think that's the reason why, to make it personal, that scene hits me so hard, because it's like, in life I will never get to know my oldest brother, but in death I might, you know? Oof.
Yeah.
Kills me every single time. But
it's a beautiful way of, you know, even if you don't know what happens in the future, what happens in moments of death, it's a beautiful way just to think about and to honor that person. Yeah. To have a memory of them. Yeah. Without even knowing them directly. There's just a feeling. And again, that is you, and I'm very sorry for your loss and sorry for that situation. And I do appreciate you sharing. Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah. And I can see why that does very much hit with this film and the topics of this film. Yeah. Oof. So thank you for that. We'll kind of, you know, I'll let you take a moment if you need. We will sort of turn the tides a little bit. We'll try and wrap this up. Every episode we do what is called a pop quiz. Okay. Previously in episodes, I just called it like a little trivia moment, which it is. But I realized later on, this podcast being called the Movie Theater Butter Podcast, why am I not calling it a pop quiz?
Hey, there you go.
So it is time for a Movie Theater Butter pop quiz.
I hope I don't fucking fail. This is gonna be so embarrassing if I do.
Yeah, as I've introduced you as a, you know, wrestling aficionado. I know.
You're gonna ask all the questions I just don't know. I'm like, can you just talk about like Raw or something like that?
Yeah, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough. This is stuff that I wanted to be tough because I want to challenge.
Let's go. Let's do it.
Question number 1. How many championship titles did Kerry Von Erichs claim in his career? And I'll give it to you if you get within 5 or 10.
How many? Oh, damn. I want to say 2.
Yeah?
I want to say.
You want to say 2?
It was more than 2.
Maybe 2?
3? It was more than that? That's crazy.
So this
Hold on. Wait, are we saying, okay, because when I think championships, I'm thinking like of what WWF, so we're talking his entire career.
Yes, entire career.
Okay, entire career. Let's go with 7.
So the answer that I found online, and listeners, fact check me for yourself if you need to, because I will admit, this information specifically, this is the first time I found info on Wikipedia, so it maybe not the most trustworthy. But it says that in Kerry Von Erichs' life, he claimed 40 championship titles.
That doesn't even fucking make sense. Okay, real talk.
So maybe that's wrong.
No. That can be right, because in his entire life. Also, I think the Von Erich boys were older than what they were presented in the movie. I want to say. I think they died older than what they were in the movie. Maybe. But that could check out, because if you think about it, in a promotion where your family runs it, right? To keep up the drama and stuff like that, they were probably exchanging belts like every other day, and that's not even including tag team championships, intercontinental, world, lightweight, all this stuff that you could, you know, work your way up to. Yeah, it's shocking. Definitely shocking. 40? That's crazy.
Said 40. Yeah.
So yeah, definitely shocking. If the majority of his belts came from his dad's federation, not surprising.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Question number 2. In what year
Oh,
was
Jesus.
Kevin Von Erich's wrestling debut?
I don't know. I don't know that. Definitely before I was born. Let's go with wrestling debut. So we're talking all the way with Kevin?
Kevin.
Ooh, okay. Eldest. Probably wanted to get in the ring real young. I don't know when he was born.
That's what makes it tough too.
Let's say 1967.
You're not far off.
Okay.
You're pretty close. It was 1976.
Damn. Okay.
But not far off. You're like a decade off.
All right. Wait, when was he born? Because it's not uncommon for like kids to have their match or whatever.
Like baby child.
there's this wrestler called Jordan Grace. She is currently signed to TNA. She started wrestling professionally when she was 15 years old.
Jesus
on the road.
Christ, dude.
On the road and everything.
I wasn't even a human being at 15 years old.
She started wrestling when she was 15 years old. Yeah, you could look her up. She's a bodybuilder now, but like
hell yeah.
She was in the game forever.
Nice.
But okay. All right.
Yeah, I'll have to look up when he was born because it'd be interesting to know what age was that officially. All right. Well, the last thing we do for this podcast is we are going to talk about how we believe this film is best watched. So, what kind of environment? Is it a movie theater one? Is it an at-home? Is it a plane movie? Is it an on your iPod Nano from 2000 whatever? That kind of thing. Also, who do we think you should watch this movie with? Alone, friends, family, a cat? Who knows? So, Rock, I would like to ask you, how do you think this film is best watched?
This movie is best watched in a medium-sized movie theater. This does not need to be, you don't need to watch this movie on IMAX or anything like that. You don't even need to watch it on like one of the bigger screens. A medium-sized movie theater with not a lot of people in there, and you watch it by yourself first and with your family on the second watch.
That's good.
And this movie will be a cult classic. I swear to God it will be. This movie will be shown in small to medium-sized movie theaters for the rest of time. That's what's going to happen. And this is going to be a bonding point between not just fathers and sons, but just families in general who either had this mindset and don't have it anymore or currently had this mindset. A lot of coaches are gonna watch this movie and be like, fuck, what am I doing?
Maybe I shouldn't be pressing these people so hard.
What am I doing? You know what I mean?
Maybe it's affecting them negatively, physically and emotionally.
Yeah. So I think that's how this movie is going to be seen. This movie is going to be seen much like how Selena is seen now in a lot of parks, and a lot of movie nights in parks and stuff like that. This movie is going to be seen that way, and it's possibly the best way you could watch a movie like this. Nice. Definitely don't watch it in your home by yourself, though. You will be crying.
You'll get too down. It's not a great place to be.
Don't do that.
Oof, very tough. I love that. I had a very kind of similar, I think that this movie should be watched in theaters alone as well, at least first time. And I would have, it's funny, I wrote down that I think you should watch it on a rainy day. Like you should be entering the theater with your coat soaking wet and your skin kind of cold, and let the warmth of the theater and some pretzel bites warm you up back to life, only to have your soul crushed by this film.
But then you walk outside though, right? And then the rain has broken.
Yeah, and there's
sunshine.
A little rainbow in the back. Yep. And it's funny too because you and I are recording this right now on a rainy day.
Yep. It is shitty in Pasadena, baby. Oh yeah.
It's very Twilight movie weather.
It's very Forks over here.
Thank you so much, Rock. Thank you for this.
Thank you for having me.
Incredible insight, and I really appreciate having you on.
Yeah.
I've been meaning to have you on this podcast for a while.
Yeah.
We just haven't gotten around to it. Yeah, and then when this movie came out, though, I was like, I need to talk to Rock about this. So
I'm honored
much.
you trusted me enough to come here and talk about my wrestling knowledge.
We'll have to have you on again for something else.
Oh yeah, this was fun.
The Ric Flair movie, obviously.
When the Ric Flair movie comes out. Come on.
2025. Let's
go. Get with it.
Well, it sounds like that's a wrap. Thank you for listening to Movie Theater Butter, a Till Kim Productions podcast, edited by Kevin Matthew Keeling of Take the World. If you have a free moment, we'd really appreciate if you like or follow the podcast from wherever you're listening. It'll really help us grow our audience and be able to continue making episodes for you guys. You can also follow us on Instagram for monthly episode schedules, extra content, and even surprise video episodes. Alright, I'm done. See you next episode.